Long before serial killers became a grim staple of modern crime, the city of New Orleans was terrorized by a mysterious killer who haunted its citizens for 2 harrowing years and was never identified. New Orleans is a city of diversity, inhabited by immigrants from all over the world. In 1918, a community of Italians became the target of a sinister figure who indulged in nearly a dozen grisly attacks on hapless victims between May of that year and October of 1919. His signature act was to use axes owned by the victims as the instruments of death. The crimes were sensationalized by the press, and because most of the targets were Italian immigrants, some speculated that the horrifying attacks were ethnically motivated and may have even involved the mafia, but there's no evidence to support this claim. Others suggest the killer was primarily interested in female victims. In several cases, only the female victim was killed, while their husbands or partners survived. It was thought that men may have been attacked only when they tried to intervene and save the women. The monstrous crime spree began on May 23, 1918, when an Italian grocer and his wife were attacked in their sleep in their apartment. The Axeman broke into the home of Joseph and Catherine Maggio and slit their throats with a straight razor and bashed in their heads with an axe. Catherine's head was nearly severed from her body, while Joseph survived for 2 hours, long enough to be found alive by his 2 brothers. He died only minutes after being found. The brothers had heard strange sounds coming from the apartment, which drew them to investigate. Later, a message was found written on the pavement in front of their apartment. "Mrs. Maggio will sit up tonight, just like Mrs. Tony," referring to the murder of another Italian grocer dating back to 1911. Police suspected it might be the same killer. The crime was not a robbery because no money or property was stolen. Police thought it was strange that one of the brothers, Andrew, who lived in the building, had not heard the intruder when he broke in and committed the murders. He claimed he was inebriated after a night of raucous drinking. He also reported seeing a suspicious character lurking near the apartment before the attacks. Only a month later, a bakery wagon driver conducting early morning deliveries discovered the ravaged bodies of Louis Bessemer and his mistress Harriet Lowe lying in a pool of blood. Bessemer's right temple had been sliced open with a hatchet, and Harriet's left ear had been meticulously carved off of her head. An axe belonging to Louis Bessemer was discovered in their bathroom. They had been attacked in their sleep. Harriet Lowe was still alive and taken to the hospital. After Lowe reported being attacked by a black man, that resident was arrested and detained, but he was quickly released due to lack of evidence. Feeding off of the sensational story, the press took aim at Bessemer himself when letters he had written in German, Yiddish, and Russian were found in a trunk in his house. Police suspected him of being a German spy, and Harriet, on the brink of death in the hospital, confirmed their suspicions. Bessemer was immediately arrested, only to be released just 2 days later due to poor detective work. Later, Harriet claimed Bessemer had attacked her with a hatchet a month earlier. Bessemer was charged with murder, but a media circus surrounded Harriet, whose accusations became increasingly unreliable. Bessemer served only 9 months in prison after Harriet's scandalous statements proved baseless. 2 months after the attack, Harriet died following a failed operation to repair her partially disfigured face. Before she died, she told authorities that she suspected it was Bessemer who attacked her. Later that same month, Anna Schneider, who was 8 months pregnant, awoke one night to see a dark figure looming over her bed. She was repeatedly struck on the face, her scalp was cut open, and her husband found her later that night, covered in blood. She survived and gave birth only 2 days later. A table lamp was deemed the likely instrument of the attack. An ex-convict named James Gleason was arrested, but like the others, he was released due to lack of evidence. Meanwhile, the police suspected that Anna's assailant was the same man responsible for the assault on Bessemer and Harriet Lowe. Only 5 days later, two young sisters, Pauline and Mary Bruno, were awakened by a disturbance in the next room. There they found their uncle, Joseph Romano, with two massive cuts on his head from a violent blow. The girls saw the attacker racing from the scene, a dark-skinned, heavy-set man in a dark suit and a droopy hat. Romano died 2 days later of head trauma. Investigators found a panel in the back of the home, chiseled away, along with a bloody axe that was spotted in the backyard. This latest incident sparked a wave of fear and panic across New Orleans. The city was being terrorized by a serial killer. Police received numerous reports of Axeman sightings, or axes mysteriously appearing in backyards. One detective speculated that the killer had a split personality and likened him to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Another Italian immigrant family was targeted in March of 1919, when screams of horror were heard coming from the home of Charles and Rosie Cortimiglia. A nearby grocer investigated and found both of them and their daughter Mary covered in blood. Charles was flat on the floor, and Rosie stood in the doorway, bleeding from the head and holding her dead daughter, who had been killed with a chop to the back of the neck. A panel on the back door of their home had been chiseled away to gain entry, and a bloody axe was discovered on the back porch. Both parents survived. Rosie accused Orlando Giordano and his 18-year-old son of the crime, even though the father was a frail 69-year-old man, and the son was too big to fit through the back door panel. They were arrested, found guilty, and the father was sentenced to hang. But a year later, Rosie admitted she made a false accusation, and the two suspects were freed. Shortly after this attack, a letter allegedly written by the Axeman was made public. In it, he bragged that he would never be caught, that he was invisible, and that he was not human, but a demon from hell. He claimed a close relationship with the angel of death, and he appeared to delight in terrifying the people of New Orleans. He proudly promised he could kill thousands if he wanted, but strangely, he would spare those who were playing jazz music at the time of his attacks. In response, citizens speculated that a jazz club owner might be trying to promote jazz music with a series of vicious murders. In August of 1919, yet another grocer, Steve Boca, was awakened one night by a dark figure hovering over him and was suddenly struck unconscious by a blow to the head with an axe. He regained consciousness and discovered his head was cracked open. He survived the attack, but remembered nothing about his attacker. The last two Axeman attacks happened in the early fall of 1919. The killer entered the apartment of 19-year-old Sarah Lawman through an open window and delivered a violent blow to her head, knocking out several teeth. A bloody axe was found on the front lawn of her building. And the final victim, Mike Pepitone, was found dead by his wife in their bedroom, struck in the head with blood spattered about the room, and the attacker fleeing into the night. To this day, there are only theories about who the mysterious Axeman of New Orleans really was. Though suspects were repeatedly named and arrested, none of them proved to be the killer. Accounts of the crimes were often unreliable, and even the culprits suggested by early crime historians based on news articles of the day have turned out to be people whose mere existence has been contested. Perhaps this is why the story of this early serial killer has captivated the curious for more than 100 years. My name is Scott, and thank you so much for watching. We are Mystery Syndicate. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, and give this video a like. And to be notified when we post new videos, hit that notification bell. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Patreon. And for exclusive merchandise, visit our website at www.mysterysyndicate.com. shop.mysterysyndicate.com. From all of us at Mystery Syndicate, thank you again. We sincerely appreciate your support.